At a height of 37 meters, the Stambolov Bridge in Veliko Tarnovo was the first freestanding cast iron bridge in the entire Balkan Peninsula. The bridge was built in 1892 at the insistence of Bulgarian statesman Stefan Stambolov, who wished to leave something memorable in his hometown. An army of construction workers hoisted each arch into place, while one brave soul, dangling precariously by a single hemp rope, secured each iron rivet. Consistent with Bulgarian tradition, after the bridge was completed, the architects and workers had to stay under the bridge while the first fully loaded ox and horse carts crossed. A little insurance that the workers would take their job seriously. One dramatic footnote in this bridge's history occurred on 24 May 1932. Bulgarian ace pilot Veliko Tarnovo flew his plane under the bridge in an unsuccessful attempt to impress a local lady. These days, the Stambolov Bridge is a pedestrian-only hangout for young people, with a perfect view of Old Town for photographers and romantic spot for couples. Bungee jumps are organized here annually around Veliko Tarnovo Day. The iron workers that dangled by hemp rope to build this bridge over 100 years ago would probably think this was cute. In 1849, master architect Usta Koyo Faceto built a house for a trader named Nikola Koyev. This building, which is situated at the start of the famous Samodska Charsha, Craftsman Street, has attracted many curious visitors over the years, as it is one of the enduring symbols of Veliko Tarnovo. According to urban legend, the original owner, Nikola Koyev, was madly in love with a beautiful lady that lived across the street. He would spend much of his time sitting on the front steps of the building, hoping to catch even a brief glimpse of this woman. And the position he held on his porch became a regular sight for many years. When the house was bought, the neighbors would often mention to the new owner that it was strange not seeing Nikola sitting on the porch. So the new owner decided to pay tribute to the hopeless romantic and give the neighbors a sense that Nikola was still with them by setting a small statue of a man sitting into the wall above the entrance of the building. And after many years, the story of Nikola Koyev was forgotten. Neighbors and passersby do not understand the meaning behind the statue on the wall. So, today the building is referred to as the House with the Monkey, as people generations later misinterpret the tiny sitting man as a small primate. In the year 1186, three brothers led a bloody rebellion against Bulgaria's Byzantine overlords. The three brothers then ruled Bulgaria after its liberation from Byzantine slavery. Two brothers, Assen and Peter, dedicated their lives to Bulgaria, that it would survive as an independent state. They ruled the newly liberated Bulgaria together and continued to defend the country from Byzantine forces. The third brother, Kaloyan, went on to become an iconic figure in the history of Bulgarian rulers. According to historical records, he was a brilliant emperor and commander of war. As a representative of Bulgaria, Tsar Kaloyan was also known to have made remarkable diplomatic achievements throughout Europe in the late 12th and early 13th centuries. Their heir, King Ivan Assen II, was then destined to be an outstanding diplomat, and he strengthened Bulgaria to return to its historic greatness. A system of hereditary rule allowed the family to retain power, and the seat of the Tsar was exchanged regularly between family members. The Assen family ruled Bulgaria for a century. Though Sofia is currently the capital of modern-day Bulgaria, in 1186, the Assen Tsars chose to rule Bulgaria from Veliko Tarnovo. In 1985, 800 years since the Assen brothers freed Bulgaria from the Byzantines, a monument to the Assen dynasty was erected in the center of Veliko Tarnovo. Gigantic black statues of the ruling Tsars, Assen, Peter, Kaloyan, and Assen II, are represented on horseback. They circle an even larger black sword pointing straight up into the sky, representing the growing strength of Bulgaria during the medieval times. The Mother Bulgaria Monument in the central square of Veliko Tarnovo is a monument to national pride and the spirit of the country. The monument was created by sculptor Svetoslav Yotsov in memory of the many soldiers who died in various battles during the country's turbulent history. At the top of the monument, on a pedestal, is a kneeling woman representing Mother Bulgaria with a crown on her head. She holds in her right hand the national flag, and in the left, an olive branch. Lower on the monument, surrounding the obelisk on the four sides, are four bronze statues of soldiers, each one representing a different conflict in Bulgaria's history. The Russian-Turkish War of 1877 to 1878, the Serbo-Bulgarian War of 1885, the First Balkan War of 1912 to 1913, and the First World War from 1915 to 1918. Inside the base of the monument is an eternal flame. The monument was funded by donations from the citizens of Veliko Tarnovo, and it was inaugurated in May of 1935. Almost immediately after the communists took control of Bulgaria, on September 9, 1944, the crown was taken down from the head of the statue, since it was considered to be a symbol of the monarchy. It wasn't until the end of the communist rule in 1989 when the crown was put back in its place. On 1 November 2012, the 25-kilogram crown was restored and plated in gold for the anniversary commemoration of 100 years since the start of the Balkan War. It is a local secret that the model for the Mother Bulgaria statue at the top of the monument was actually a local student from Veliko Tarnovo, born in 1911. She was also the sister of the famous Bulgarian artist Vladimir Gavalchev. Her meeting with the monument sculptor Svetoslav Yotsov not only changed the look of the monument, but it also changed her life, as she ended up marrying him. Vasil Ivanov Kunchev was born in the sub-Balkan town of Karlovo to middle-class parents in 1837. He left Bulgaria to fight alongside the Serbians against the Ottomans, and it was there that he earned the name Levski, which can be translated to lion-like. At the end of the 1860s, Levski developed a revolutionary theory that saw the Bulgarian liberation movement as an armed uprising of all Bulgarians in the Ottoman Empire. Levski's vision was that all religions and ethnic groups in a free Bulgaria, whether Bulgarians, Turks, Jews, or others, would enjoy equal rights. Levski then spent a year and a half, often traveling by foot and in disguise, establishing a wide network of secret committees throughout Bulgaria. Hunted by the Ottomans and with a huge price on his head, Vasil Levski decided to flee to Romania, but first he had to collect the documents that would reveal his nationwide network. However, he was arrested, taken to Tarnovo for interrogation, and sentenced to death by hanging. The sentence was carried out on 18 February 1873 in Sofia, where today the monument of Vasil Levski in Sofia now stands. The monument of Vasil Levski in Veliko Tarnovo was inaugurated in 1946. It was here that Levski passed as a prisoner on his way to Sofia for trial in December of 1872. Now he is considered the greatest of Bulgarian heroes. Vasil Levski was prepared to sacrifice his life for the revolution and place Bulgaria and the Bulgarian people above his own personal interests. In 1774, a bridge was built over the Yantra River in Tarnovo. For the first time, the two parts of this medieval city were connected, the fortresses of Tsarevets and Trapezitsa. The bridge is located next to Tarnovo's bishopry, and construction for this crossing was financed by the bishops of Tarnovo as well. So today, it goes by the name Bishop's Bridge. This bridge remained the only crossing of the Yantra River until 1935. At the eastern edge of the bridge, you can see the guardhouses, whose towers in the past housed the guards and the customs officers. As this was the only bridge connecting the towns of Veliko and the nearby village of Abernasi, traders were constantly crossing. Using the storerooms below the guardhouse, customs officers could store their fees, paid in barter by the tradesmen. These days, the guardians of the bridge are much friendlier, and probably a lot cuter. Though the guards and customs officers are long gone, there is one medieval tradition at the bridge that persists today. Every year on January 6, religious leaders cross the bridge above, while excited youth wait in anticipation below. The Holy Cross is tossed from the bridge into the freezing Yantra River below, and young men scramble to catch it. According to Bulgarian Orthodox tradition, the young man that catches the cross will be blessed with perfect health throughout the rest of the year. There is no other church in Bulgaria which is so closely connected to the most important events in Bulgarian history than the Holy 40 Martyrs Church in Veliko Tarnovo. Following an important victory in battle with the local despot on the 9th of March in the year 1230, Bulgarian Tsar Ivan Asen II commanded that a recently built temple below his fortress be dedicated as the Holy 40 Martyrs Church. This church would be dedicated to the 40 martyrs of Sebast, since the battle that they had just won took place on the day of the feast of the Holy 40 Martyrs. He also commanded that the church interior be completely covered with murals. Holy 40 Martyrs Church was to be the royal church throughout the reign of the Assen Dynasty. After the Ottomans took control of Bulgaria, the church was converted to a mosque. Then in 1853, the murals, the icons, and the altar were destroyed. Only a very small percentage of the murals survived. However, considering how thoroughly the Ottomans trashed the building, it's quite remarkable that they were able to reconstruct any of the art at all. In 1972, a royal burial of a man 1.9 meters tall, lavishly dressed in expensive warrior armor and decorated with complex embroidery with woven leaf and pearls, was unearthed. On his body was a massive 61.1 gram gold ring bearing the royal seal and an inscription, Kayolan Prastin, or Kayolan's ring. After staying for years in the Museum of Veliko Tarnovo, Tsar Kayolan, one-time ruler of Bulgaria, was reburied at the Holy 40 Martyrs Church with honors. The 40 Martyrs Church was also the location of then Prime Minister of Bulgaria, Stefan Stambolov's lavish wedding on the 18th of May, 1888. In this church, just a little bit later, on the 22nd of September, 1908, the Bulgarian Declaration of Independence from the Ottoman Empire was finally read aloud for the first time by Tsar Ferdinand. Today, preserved murals as well as epigraphic monuments within the temple remain some of the most important artifacts in Bulgarian history. In the year 1185, three brothers led a bloody rebellion against Bulgaria's Byzantine overlords. After their success to free Bulgaria, they designated an already heavily fortified city to be the capital of the Second Bulgarian Tsardom. The town was called Tsarevets Fortress, or the King's Town of Turnov. This was the beginning of the Assen Dynasty, and the fortress that they built on a brilliantly strategic peninsula hill became the castle from which the Assen Dynasty would rule for over 2 centuries. Further fortifications, together with the main gate, southwest gate, southeast gate, and battle towers, were later constructed during the reign of Tsar Ivan Asen II. Tsarevets was the fortress resident of the Tsar, and it was synonymous with greatness, glory, and wealth. Tsarevets Fortress became the political, administrative, military, religious, and cultural center for all of Bulgaria. In the main citadel, you could find the Tsar and Patriarch's buildings, 23 churches, inns, and water reservoirs. Archaeological excavations have also uncovered the foundations of 470 residential buildings. Archaeologists began their study of Tsarevets in the early 20th century. By the 1960s and 1970s, the entire hill was almost completely excavated. The fortress walls and buildings were partially restored in the 1970s and 1980s. Today, Tsarevets has been transformed into an architectural and museum reserve. This is a unique place to walk the halls of the great kings of Bulgaria, meander through the residential areas, and keep watch over the wall for invading armies. And imagine what life must have been like in this densely populated hilltop fortress. Sound and Light is a unique attraction for Europe and was quite ahead of its time 30 years ago when it first premiered. Dramatic music, multicolored lights, lasers, and church bells gathered in one tell the glorious and dramatic history of the Second Bulgarian Kingdom. The concept for this spectacular dates all the way back to the early 1960s. The government of Veliko Tarnovo was looking for unique ways to promote the old capital as a historical, cultural, and tourist destination. The original concept was to create an elevated viewing area across from Tsarevets with a full view of the fortress. To the sides of the scene would be illuminated wall panels with projections that would tell the story of the dramatic history of Bulgaria from its origin in the year 681 to the capturing of Tarnovo from the Ottoman Empire in the year 1393. The show premiered November of 1985, in time for the 800th anniversary of the uprising of the brothers Asen and Peter and the beginning of the Asen Dynasty. The history told through the presentation is synchronized with dramatic music and a light display that covers the entire hill. The current 21-minute show includes 2,400 multicolored searchlights, 140 floodlights directed at the audience, and 6 massive bells weighing from 600 kilograms to 6 tons. The original production of the show, launched in 1985, was meant to possibly run for 30 years, but it's still going and more popular than ever. The Sound and Light Show is performed year-round, regardless of weather conditions, and to find out a schedule of performances, check their website at soundandlight.bg. With the vast majority of art, architecture, history, and culture in Veliko Tarnovo originating hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, the mere concept of contemporary art feels completely alien in this environment. But like a seed that defies all odds and sprouts in the desert, the signs of contemporary art culture can be seen, timidly blooming in the narrow side streets, stairways, and alleys of the city. The contrast can actually be quite shocking. A Bulgarian city overflowing with medieval fortresses and Ottoman houses, with an occasional flash of graffiti and a bold splash of color. And then came the Vikings. In 2016, Norwegian artist Lars Nordby visited Veliko Tarnovo. In a city only known artistically for its abundance of traditional blacksmiths, woodcarvers, and leatherworkers, he had a vision of bringing contemporary art into the mix. In 2019, his new gallery, HeerzTooya, presented its first exhibition and continued to provide monthly solo exhibitions throughout the year. As you can imagine, like a drop of creative water in a centuries-old desert, Lars' gallery was a massive hit.
HeerzTooya presents artists, both young and established Bulgarian and international contemporary artists, and every month there is 2 separate exhibitions from May to September. We have openings and we are supported by the local community as much as possible. As an outsider bringing contemporary art into Veliko Tarnovo, I would say it's been rather challenging in the beginning because there's slightly non-existent. But throughout the year, the last 2 years, it's been increasingly more popular, and I've been bringing some of the flair of Oslo art scene vibe, you could say. So I'm just happy to contribute with some contemporary art and the development of that direction. It's also related to an artist residency I run in a small village called Visegrad, named ARV International, where also international contemporary artists live there for 1 month, and they conclude their stay with an exhibition here at the gallery.
The infusion of contemporary art into the landscape of Veliko Tarnovo was a bold and wonderful move, and something that needed to eventually happen for the culture of this ancient city to expand enough to tell the story of Veliko Tarnovo in this new millennia.